I am Anthony, 32, and family used to mean everything to me. Growing up, our annual vacations were sacred traditions filled with laughter and connection. So when my parents suggested a Florida beach getaway, I eagerly took time off work. But standing at the resort reception desk, confusion turned to disbelief. There was no room reserved for me. My sister Melissa smirked and said, "We reserved rooms for me, my husband, and my child. We are the real family now." I felt my heart crack as years of belonging evaporated in an instant. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever felt excluded by the people who were supposed to love you most. Trust me, what happens next will show you exactly how to handle family betrayal with dignity. Growing up in suburban Chicago, my relationship with my parents was what most would consider ideal. My dad, a dedicated small business owner who ran a local hardware store, always made time for weekend fishing trips and helping with science projects. My mom, an elementary school teacher, was equally involved, attending every school event and ensuring our home was always warm and welcoming. We were not wealthy, but my parents prioritized experiences over possessions, especially our annual family vacations. After graduating from the University of Illinois with a computer science degree, I moved to Boston to work as a software engineer for a healthcare tech company. Despite the 1,000-mile distance, I made sure to fly home for holidays and important occasions. Video calls became our Sunday evening ritual, and I genuinely enjoyed hearing about my parents' daily lives and sharing my own adventures in the city. My sister Melissa, 3 years my senior at 35, had followed a different path. She stayed in Chicago, married her college sweetheart Ryan, a financial advisor, and recently gave birth to their daughter Emma. At 10 months old, Emma had become the undisputed center of my parents' universe. Their first grandchild had transformed their home into a shrine of baby photos and handmade crafts displaying Emma's tiny handprints. I was genuinely happy for my sister. When Emma was born, I flew home immediately and spent a week helping out, bringing coffee for the sleep-deprived new parents, and even learning to change diapers. I bought Emma an adorable collection of children's books with a special bookcase for her nursery. As her uncle, I wanted to establish a meaningful relationship with my niece from the start. But over the past few months, I noticed subtle shifts in our family dynamic. Video calls increasingly centered around Emma's latest achievements. My parents began missing our scheduled Sunday calls because they were babysitting or attending Emma's first swimming lesson or first trip to the zoo. When I shared news about my promotion at work, my mother responded with brief congratulations before launching into a detailed account of how Emma had started crawling. Still, when my dad called in early June suggesting a week-long beach vacation in Florida, I was thrilled. Our family vacations were treasured memories from childhood, and I loved the idea of rekindling that tradition with Emma, now part of the family. Despite a critical project deadline looming, I arranged to work remotely for a few days and took the rest as vacation time. "We have found this amazing resort in Destin," my dad explained, "right on the beach with multiple pools and restaurants on site." "Sounds perfect," I replied. "Just send me the details, and I will book my flight." Actually, my mom interjected, "We thought we would drive. It is about 16 hours from Chicago, but we can break it up with stops." I considered the logistics. I would have to drive from Boston, which would take much longer. Maybe I should fly into a nearby airport and rent a car. After some discussion, we settled on a plan. My parents, Melissa, Ryan, and Emma, would drive from Chicago together. I would fly into Fort Walton Beach Airport and rent a car for the hour drive to the resort. We would all arrive on Saturday afternoon and stay for 7 nights. The family group chat buzzed with excitement in the weeks leading up to the trip. My mom shared links to nearby attractions. Melissa posted photos of the tiny swimsuits she had purchased for Emma. Ryan researched fishing charters. I suggested restaurants and found a sunset cruise that looked spectacular. Nobody mentioned room arrangements. In retrospect, this should have been my first warning sign, but I assumed we would follow our usual vacation pattern. Typically, my parents would share a room, Melissa would have her own, and so would I. With Ryan and Emma now in the picture, I expected they would book a larger suite or connecting rooms to accommodate everyone. I packed my suitcase with shorts, t-shirts, swimming trunks, and sunscreen. I purchased a beach ball and inflatable float for Emma, wrapping them carefully to present to her upon arrival. The night before my flight, I called my parents to confirm final details. "We cannot wait to see you, honey," my mom said. "Emma has been babbling Anne, which we think might be her trying to say Uncle Anthony." "I cannot wait to see all of you too," I replied. "This vacation is exactly what I need right now. If only I had known what was waiting for me at that resort reception desk." My flight landed at Fort Walton Beach Airport under clear blue skies. After retrieving my luggage and picking up my rental car, I followed the GPS directions toward Destin. The drive along Highway 98 offered stunning views of the Gulf of Mexico, its waters, an impossible shade of turquoise that seemed almost artificial. Palm trees swayed in the gentle breeze, and I rolled down the windows to breathe in the salt air. After months of Boston's urban landscape and recent rainy weather, the Florida sunshine felt like therapy. I arrived at the Emerald Coast Resort just after 3 in the afternoon. The property was even more impressive than the website photos had suggested. A grand entrance led to a sprawling lobby with soaring ceilings, marble floors, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the pristine white beach beyond. Fountains bubbled in the courtyard, and tropical flowers added splashes of vibrant color throughout the grounds. I spotted my family immediately. My father waved enthusiastically from a seating area near the reception desk. My mother was bouncing Emma on her knee, while Melissa and Ryan stood nearby looking relaxed in their vacation attire. The sight of them brought a genuine smile to my face. Despite the subtle tensions I had noticed recently, they were my family, and I was thrilled to be spending this time with them. "Anthony," my father called, striding over to envelop me in a bear hug. "How was your flight?" "Smooth and on time," I replied, returning his embrace before moving to hug my mother and Melissa. I shook Ryan's hand and then bent down to Emma's level. "Hey there, little one. Uncle Anthony brought you some beach toys." Emma babbled happily and reached for my face with her chubby hands. I felt the familiar surge of affection for my niece, whose brown eyes and dimpled smile mirrored Melissa's. "We just finished checking in," my mother said. "The resort is gorgeous, is not it? They have 5 different pools, including one with a swim-up bar." "Looks amazing," I agreed. "Let me get checked in too, and then we can plan our first vacation activity." I approached the reception desk, where a friendly attendant greeted me with a professional smile. "Welcome to Emerald Coast Resort. Checking in today." "Yes, the reservation should be under Anthony Reynolds, part of the Reynolds family booking." The attendant typed on her keyboard, her brow furrowing slightly. "I do not see a reservation under that name. Let me check the full Reynolds party." She continued searching while I waited patiently. Behind me, I could hear Emma's delighted giggles as my father played peekaboo with her. "I am sorry, sir," the attendant finally said. "I do not show a room reserved for Anthony Reynolds. I see 2 rooms under the Reynolds booking. One for Thomas and Margaret Reynolds, and one for Melissa and Ryan Crawford with a crib request." Confused, I turned toward my family. "There seems to be some confusion with the reservation. They cannot find my room." My father approached the desk, his expression uncomfortable. My mother suddenly became very interested in Emma's toy giraffe. Melissa, however, had a subtle smirk playing at the corner of her mouth. "Dad," I prompted, "is there another confirmation number I should be giving them?" My father cleared his throat. "Well, Anthony, we only booked 2 rooms. Your mother and I will have Emma in our room since we brought the portable crib. Melissa and Ryan have the other room. And I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. "Okay, but where am I supposed to stay?" An awkward silence fell over our group. The receptionist, sensing tension, tactfully focused on her computer screen. "We thought you might be able to figure something out," my mother finally said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Maybe find a room here or at another hotel nearby." "Figure something out," I repeated, struggling to keep my voice even. "You invited me on a family vacation, but did not actually include me in the plans." Melissa stepped forward, bouncing Emma on her hip. "Mom and Dad are covering our rooms as a gift, since Ryan took unpaid leave to be here. We assumed, since you make good money at your fancy tech job, you could cover your own room." "That is not the point," I said, feeling a flush of anger rising in my neck. "Why would you not tell me this before I flew all the way down here? The courtesy of a heads up would have been nice. We did not think it would be a big deal." my father said weakly. We figured you would understand. I turned back to the receptionist. Do you have any available rooms for the week? She typed quickly, then shook her head apologetically. I am sorry, sir. We are fully booked for the next 10 days. It is peak season and we have a corporate retreat arriving tomorrow as well. Perfect, I muttered under my breath. It is just a room, Melissa said with an eye roll. Stop making such a big deal about it. We reserved rooms for me, my husband, and my child. We are the real family now. You are just visiting. Her words hit me like a physical blow. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to contradict her, to insist that I was absolutely part of the real family. Instead, my mother looked distressed while my father examined his shoes. In that moment, something crystallized inside me. Perhaps this room situation was merely a symptom of a larger shift that had been happening gradually since Emma's birth. I was no longer a priority. I was an afterthought, expected to make my own arrangements, while still showing up with gifts and enthusiasm. I see, I said finally, my voice calm despite the storm of emotions inside. Well, if I am not considered part of the family anymore, then there is no reason for me to stay. Anthony, do not be dramatic. My mother began, finally finding her voice. I am not being dramatic, I replied evenly. I am simply acknowledging the reality of the situation. You did not include me in your plans. Melissa has made it clear where I stand. So I will leave you to your family vacation. Where will you go? My father asked, looking genuinely concerned now that he realized I was serious. I will figure something out, I replied deliberately, echoing his earlier words. Enjoy your week at the beach. With that, I turned and walked calmly toward the exit, ignoring their calls behind me. I had driven halfway across the parking lot before I heard running footsteps. Ryan appeared at my side, slightly out of breath. Anthony, wait, he said. This is ridiculous. Let me talk to Melissa and your parents. We can work something out. There is nothing to work out, I replied. The situation is perfectly clear. Thanks for at least making the effort, Ryan. I got into my rental car and drove away, watching in the rearview mirror, as my brother-in-law stood in the parking lot looking uncertain about what to do next. Driving away from the Emerald Coast Resort, I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My mind raced between disbelief, hurt, and anger. The logical part of me suggested turning around and working things out, finding a compromise. But another part, the part that had felt increasingly marginalized in my own family, needed space to process what had just happened. I headed east on Highway 98 with no particular destination in mind. Palm trees and beachfront properties blurred past my windows as I tried to make sense of the situation. My phone buzzed repeatedly in the passenger seat. I glanced over to see my mother's name flashing on the screen, followed by texts from my father and even Melissa. I ignored them all. After about an hour of aimless driving, I spotted a modest roadside motel called the Sandpiper Inn. Its blue and white sign promised clean rooms and cable television, a far cry from the luxury resort I had left behind. But at this point, I just needed a place to regroup. The middle-aged woman at the reception desk barely looked up from her paperback novel as she processed my credit card and handed me a physical key to room 118. The room was basic but clean, with a queen bed covered in a faded floral bedspread, a small table with 2 chairs, and a television that probably dated back to the early 2002. Through the thin curtains I could see the parking lot, and beyond that a glimpse of the ocean. It was not the beachfront view I had anticipated for this vacation, but at least the air conditioning worked. I sat on the edge of the bed and finally checked my phone. 12 missed calls and 27 text messages. My mother's voicemail was tearful, begging me to come back. My father's was more measured, admitting they had handled things poorly. Melissa's text simply read, "You are being childish. Grow up." With a sigh, I turned off my phone and lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Memories of childhood vacations flooded my mind. The summer we drove to Yellowstone and saw a grizzly bear with 2 cubs from a safe distance. The trip to San Diego, where my father taught Melissa and me to body surf in the Pacific. The week in Washington, D.C., where we walked until our feet ached, visiting every monument and museum we could fit in. In all those memories, I had been an integral part of the family unit. When had that changed? The shift had been so gradual I had hardly noticed it happening. There were small signs I had dismissed. Last Thanksgiving, my mother had prepared all of Melissa's favorite dishes but forgot the cranberry sauce I always requested. At Christmas, my parents had given Melissa and Ryan a generous check toward their mortgage while I received a store-bought sweater. My birthday call last month had lasted barely 5 minutes before my mother mentioned she needed to go help Melissa with Emma. None of these incidents seemed significant in isolation, but together they formed a pattern I had been reluctant to acknowledge. The arrival of Emma had reshaped our family dynamics, and somehow I had been pushed to the periphery. I must have dozed off because when I opened my eyes again, the room was bathed in the golden light of sunset. My stomach growled, reminding me I had not eaten since the airport sandwich hours ago. I ventured out and found a small seafood shack a quarter-mile down the road where I ordered grilled grouper and watched the sun disappear into the Gulf. Back in my room, I turned my phone on briefly to send a text to my parents, "I am safe. Need some time to think. We'll be in touch tomorrow." Then I turned it off again and took a long shower, letting the hot water wash away some of the tension in my shoulders. That night I slept fitfully, dreaming of family gatherings where everyone could see me but no one acknowledged my presence. I woke at dawn feeling unrested but slightly clearer in my thinking. Rather than rushing back to face my family, I decided to give myself the day I had planned anyway. After a quick breakfast at a local diner, I found a public beach access point and spent the morning swimming in the crystal clear water and walking along the shore collecting seashells that reminded me of the ones Melissa and I had gathered as children. Around noon, I turned my phone back on, bracing myself for the barrage of notifications. There were even more messages now, their tone increasingly urgent. My mother's latest text caught my attention immediately. "Emma has a high fever. We are worried. Please call." My heart raced as I scrolled through the subsequent messages. Apparently, Emma had developed a fever last night, which had continued to rise throughout the morning. The resort doctor had seen her and recommended they take her to the local hospital for tests and observation. My parents were frantic, and even Melissa's messages had lost their accusatory edge, replaced by genuine fear. Despite everything that had happened, concern for my niece overrode all other emotions. I found a shady spot under a palm tree and called my mother. She answered on the first ring. "Anthony. Oh, thank goodness. How is Emma?" I asked, skipping any preamble. "She is at Gulf Coast Hospital," my mother said, her voice tight with worry. "Her fever reached 103.5, and she has been pulling at her ear. The doctor thinks it might be an ear infection, but they are running tests to make sure it is nothing more serious." "She seems so miserable, Anthony." "I will be there as soon as I can," I said without hesitation. "Text me the hospital address. You are coming." The relief in my mother's voice was palpable. Of course I am coming. She is my niece. I ended the call and headed straight for my rental car. I drove to Gulf Coast Hospital with single-minded focus, weaving through unfamiliar streets guided by GPS directions. The morning's blue skies had given way to threatening storm clouds, matching the tumult of emotions within me. Family disagreements suddenly seemed trivial compared to Emma's health crisis. During my sophomore year of college, I had taken an advanced first aid course after a friend suffered a seizure in our dorm. Though I had ultimately pursued computer science instead of medicine, I had maintained an interest in medical topics, often researching health information when friends or family fell ill. This habit had earned me the nickname Dr. Google from my sister, though her teasing had always held a note of appreciation for my thoroughness. The hospital parking lot was crowded, forcing me to park in the furthest row. Fat raindrops began falling as I jogged toward the entrance, arriving at the reception desk, slightly breathless and damp. "I am looking for Emma Crawford," I told the receptionist. "My niece, 10 months old, brought in with a high fever." After verifying I was family, she directed me to the pediatric ward on the 3rd floor. The elevator seemed to move in slow motion, and when the doors finally opened, I spotted my father immediately. He was pacing the waiting area, his normally confident posture replaced by the stooped shoulders of worry. "Dad," I called out. He turned, and the relief on his face was immediate and profound. Anthony, you came. He embraced me tightly, something he rarely did. Thank you for coming. How is she? I asked, following him down the corridor. The doctor is with her now. They think it is an ear infection, but they are concerned about the high fever and possible dehydration. She has been refusing to nurse or take a bottle. We reached a small treatment room, where my mother sat in a chair looking years older than she had yesterday. Melissa stood by a hospital crib, her hand resting on Emma's tiny leg. Ryan was speaking quietly with a doctor in the corner. All heads turned when we entered. Anthony. My mother rose and rushed to hug me. I am so glad you are here. Melissa's eyes were red and puffy from crying. For a moment we looked at each other awkwardly, yesterday's harsh words hanging between us. Then her facade cracked and she whispered, "Thank you for coming." I moved to the crib where Emma lay flushed and whimpering. Her usual vibrant energy was nowhere to be seen. She wore only a diaper with a cooling pad placed gently on her forehead and monitoring wires attached to her chest. An IV line delivered fluids to her tiny arm, secured with colorful tape, and a small splint to prevent movement. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, softly touching her warm cheek. Emma's eyes fluttered open, and despite her discomfort, she gave a weak smile of recognition. The doctor, a young woman with a gentle demeanor, approached us. "You must be the uncle I have been hearing about," she said, extending her hand. "I am Dr. Patel." "Anthony Reynolds," I replied. "What are we dealing with here?" Dr. Patel explained that Emma had developed a severe ear infection, which was not uncommon in infants, especially after air pressure changes during travel or swimming. The concern was her high fever and signs of dehydration from refusing liquids. "We have started her on antibiotics for the infection," she continued. "The IV is providing necessary fluids and fever reducers. We will need to monitor her for at least 24 hours to ensure the antibiotics are working and her fluid levels improve." I asked several specific questions about the type of antibiotics, potential side effects, and recovery timeline. Dr. Patel seemed impressed by my knowledge and addressed each question thoroughly. My family listened intently, and I noticed Melissa taking notes on her phone. "You seem very well informed," Dr. Patel commented. "I do a lot of research," I replied, "and I want what is best for my niece." After the doctor left, promising to return in an hour to check Emma's progress, an awkward silence fell over the room. The immediate medical discussion had provided a buffer, but now we were left facing the unresolved tension from yesterday. "I will get some coffee for everyone," Ryan suggested tactfully, clearly sensing the need for family space. "Anthony want to help me carry everything." I nodded, grateful for his perceptiveness. As we walked toward the hospital cafeteria, Ryan spoke candidly. "Look, I want to apologize for yesterday. The room situation was handled poorly." "You do not need to apologize," I replied. "It was not your decision." "Actually, I knew about it and did not speak up," he admitted. "I should have said something. The truth is, Melissa has been struggling with some things lately." "What do you mean?" Ryan sighed. "Becoming a mother has been harder than she expected. Emma had colic for the first 3 months, barely sleeping more than 2 hours at a time. Melissa had postpartum depression, though she would never admit it to you or your parents. This was news to me. She never said anything. Because you are the successful one," Ryan explained. "In her mind, you have the perfect career, the freedom to travel, no responsibilities tying you down. She feels like your parents have always been prouder of your achievements than hers." "That is ridiculous," I protested. "They have always supported both of us." "Maybe so, but that is not how she sees it. When Emma came along, it was finally something she had that you did not. A way to be the center of attention." His words made me reconsider countless interactions from Melissa's perspective. Had my sister really felt like she was living in my shadow all these years? We returned with coffee to find my parents sitting close together, speaking in hushed tones. My mother's eyes were red from crying. Melissa stood by Emma's crib, gently stroking her daughter's hair. "She is sleeping," Melissa whispered as we entered. "Her fever has come down a little." We all settled into the cramped room, sipping coffee in silence. Finally, my father cleared his throat. "Anthony, about yesterday. We owe you an apology." Yes, we do, my mother agreed. We handled everything terribly. I took a deep breath. Why did you not just tell me ahead of time about the room situation? I could have made arrangements. It was the surprise and exclusion that hurt. My parents exchanged glances. We were embarrassed, my father finally admitted. The truth is, we could not afford 3 rooms. What this was unexpected. My parents had always been financially stable. My business has been struggling since the big hardware chain opened across town, he explained. We have been using our retirement savings to stay afloat. This vacation was already stretching our budget, but we wanted to do something special with Emma while she is still a baby. Why did you not tell me? I asked, stunned by this revelation. Pride, my father said simply. I did not want my successful son to know I was failing. You are not failing, Dad, I said firmly. Businesses go through tough times, but keeping secrets like this only makes things worse. Melissa, who had been quiet until now, suddenly burst into tears. This is all my fault, she sobbed. I pushed for this vacation. I pushed for them to pay for our room. And I said those horrible things to you, Anthony. Mel, I began, but she continued through her tears. The truth is, I have been jealous of you for years. You left home, built this amazing career, while I stayed in Chicago, married my college boyfriend, became a mother. Your life seems so exciting compared to midnight feedings and diaper changes. My life is not as perfect as you imagine, I said gently. I work 70-hour weeks. My last relationship ended because I was too dedicated to my job. My apartment barely feels like home because I am there so rarely. But Mom and Dad are so proud of you, she insisted, always bragging about their son, the software engineer. They brag about you too, I countered. Every video call I hear about what an amazing mother you are. How beautiful Emma is, how you are carrying on the family traditions. We stared at each other, suddenly seeing the same situations from completely different perspectives. Before we could continue, a nurse entered to check Emma's vital signs, reporting that her fever was continuing to decrease. Collective relief temporarily pushed aside our conversation. When the nurse left, my mother reached for both Melissa's hand and mine. We have been terrible communicators, all of us, she said. And it nearly tore our family apart. It should not have taken Emma getting sick to bring us back together. As if on cue, Emma stirred in her crib and let out a small whimper. Melissa and I both moved toward her simultaneously, then paused, looking at each other. You go, I said. You are her mother. Melissa shook her head. We both go. She needs her uncle too. Standing side by side over Emma's crib, watching her fever-bright eyes find and recognize both our faces, I felt the first fragile threads of reconciliation begin to form. Night fell outside the hospital windows, as Emma finally drifted into a more peaceful sleep. Her fever had stabilized at a lower temperature, and Dr. Patel seemed cautiously optimistic about her progress. The antibiotics appeared to be working, though she would need to remain under observation overnight. My parents, exhausted from a day of worry, reluctantly agreed to return to the resort for a few hours of rest. Melissa was determined to stay at Emma's bedside, and Ryan volunteered to go with my parents and bring back a change of clothes for everyone. You should go too, Anthony, Melissa said. You have been here for hours. I will stay if that is okay, I replied. You might need a break, and I am not tired. After my parents and Ryan left, Melissa and I sat in uncomfortable plastic chairs on opposite sides of Emma's crib. The beeping of monitors and distant hospital sounds filled the silence between us. I meant what I said earlier, Melissa finally spoke. I am sorry for what I said at the resort. It was cruel and not at all what I really think. What do you really think? I asked quietly. She looked down at her sleeping daughter. I think I have been trying so hard to be a perfect mother that I forgot how to be a decent sister. She met my eyes. The truth is, I have felt inadequate compared to you for years. You were always the smart one, the one with big dreams. I stayed in our hometown, married young, followed the expected path. I never saw it that way, I admitted. I always admired how confident you were about what you wanted. I moved to Boston partly because I was not sure what else to do with myself. Really? She looked genuinely surprised. You always seemed to have everything figured out. Hardly, I laughed softly. I work constantly because I am afraid of failing. My apartment is basically just a place to sleep between work shifts. And dating in your 30s in a city where everyone is career-obsessed is nearly impossible. I had no idea, Melissa said. You always post such exciting things on social media. That is the highlight reel, I explained. Nobody posts about eating microwave dinners alone on a Tuesday night. A nurse came in to check Emma's vitals, smiling approvingly at the readings before quietly leaving us alone again. Can I ask you something? I ventured. Ryan mentioned you had postpartum depression. Why did you not tell me? Melissa's expression tightened. Because you would have tried to fix it with research and solutions, and sometimes I just needed someone to listen without trying to solve my problems. Her words stung with their accuracy. I did tend to approach problems analytically rather than emotionally. I would have tried to listen, I said. If I had known that was what you needed. I know, she conceded. But it was easier to keep you at a distance than admit I was struggling. Especially when Mom and Dad were calling you every week to brag about what an amazing mother I was. They were probably trying to include me in Emma's life, I suggested. But it made you feel like you were being compared to some idealized standard. Melissa nodded, wiping away a tear. Exactly. And then when they suggested this vacation, I saw it as my chance to show everyone what a perfect little family we had become. I pushed for them to pay for our room knowing they were struggling financially. You knew about Dad's business problems, I was surprised. Ryan helped them refinance their mortgage last year, she admitted. I knew things were tight, but I still let them spend money on us because it made you feel valued. I finished for her. She nodded miserably. And now Emma is sick and we are all miserable, and it feels like punishment for my selfishness. Emma's ear infection is not punishment, I said firmly. Kids get sick. It happens. But if we had not come on this vacation, then she might have gotten sick at home instead, I pointed out. At least here she has got good medical care and her whole family around her. The door opened and Ryan returned with a duffel bag of clothes and a tray of sandwiches from the hospital cafeteria. Your parents are resting, he reported. They will come back first thing in the morning. He looked between us. Everything okay here? We are getting there, I said, accepting a sandwich gratefully. Ryan pulled up a chair beside Melissa. I should probably tell Anthony about the room arrangements, he said quietly to her. Melissa sighed but nodded. He deserves to know everything. Ryan turned to me. The truth is, I argued against the 2-room plan from the start. I even offered to pay for your room myself. But Melissa insisted it would make your parents feel bad if we could afford something they could not. That is true, Melissa admitted. But also part of me wanted to make you feel excluded. To give you a taste of how I have felt all these years living in your shadow. So instead of talking to me about these feelings, you decided to teach me a lesson. I could not keep the hurt from my voice. It was immature and mean, she acknowledged. I convinced myself you would just book your own room without complaint because you can afford it. I never expected you to walk away. I almost did not, I confessed. But when you said that thing about the real family, I did not mean it, she said quickly. I was just lashing out because I felt defensive. Our conversation was interrupted by Dr. Patel returning to check on Emma. She brought good news. The antibiotics were working effectively. The fever continuing to decrease. And Emma had taken a small amount of liquid without resistance. If she continues improving at this rate, you should be able to take her back to your hotel tomorrow afternoon, Dr. Patel said. Though she will need to complete the full course of antibiotics, and you should follow up with her pediatrician when you return home. After answering our questions, Dr. Patel left us with instructions to call the nurse if we noticed any changes. The positive medical update lightened the atmosphere in the room considerably. You should try to get some sleep, I told Melissa, noticing the dark circles under her eyes. I can watch Emma for a few hours. Are you sure? She asked hesitantly. Positive. Incles duties include night shifts. Melissa reclined her chair as far as it would go and closed her eyes. Ryan stretched out on the small couch along the wall. Within minutes, both were asleep, leaving me alone with my thoughts and my sleeping niece. Looking at Emma's peaceful face, the family drama of the past 24 hours seemed simultaneously important and trivial. Important because unaddressed feelings had created genuine wounds, trivial because what ultimately mattered was that we all loved this little person and wanted to be part of her life. When my parents returned early the next morning, they found the three of us still in the same positions. Emma had woken only twice during the night, each time taking a small amount of liquid before falling back asleep. Her fever was now barely elevated. My mother touched my shoulder gently. "You stayed all night." "Someone needed to keep watch," I replied simply. "Anthony," my father said quietly, "we need to talk about the financial situation. I should have been honest with you from the beginning." "Yes, you should have," I agreed. "But let us focus on Emma for now. We can sort out everything else later." Dr. Patel arrived for morning rounds and was pleased with Emma's progress. "Her infection is responding well to treatment," she confirmed. "If she continues taking fluids and her fever remains controlled, you can take her back to your hotel this afternoon." The relief in the room was palpable. Melissa hugged Ryan tightly, tears of happiness replacing yesterday's worried ones. My parents thanked the doctor profusely, and I found myself releasing tension I had not realized I was holding. As we waited for Emma's discharge, my father pulled me aside. "Son, there is something I need to say." "Dad, really, we can talk about the money later." "This is not about money," he said firmly. "It is about how we have treated you. Somehow, in our excitement about becoming grandparents, we forgot to be fair parents. We took you for granted because you have always been so capable and independent. I have felt a bit sidelined," I admitted. "More than a bit, I think," he replied sadly. "And that ends today. You are an essential part of this family, Anthony. Always have been, always will be." His words were simple, but exactly what I needed to hear. Before I could respond, a nurse entered with discharge papers and final instructions for Emma's care. The timing of our deeper reconciliation would have to wait, but my father's acknowledgement had already begun healing wounds I had barely acknowledged to myself. Late afternoon sunlight bathed the Emerald Coast Resort in golden hues as we returned from the hospital. Emma, still on antibiotics, but significantly improved, had fallen asleep in her car seat during the drive. The crisis had passed, leaving us all emotionally drained but relieved. In the resort parking lot, we faced the practical reality of our situation. 2 rooms for 5 adults and a baby. Ryan broke the awkward silence. "Anthony, you should take our room tonight," he suggested. "Melissa and I can stay with Emma in her grandparents' room, since they have the portable crib." "That is not necessary," I protested. "I found a decent motel about an hour from here." "Absolutely not," Melissa said firmly. "You are staying here with us. This is a family vacation, and you are family." "I have a better idea," my father interjected. "Let me speak with the resort manager. Perhaps they have had a cancellation." We gathered in the lobby while my father approached the reception desk. Emma had awakened and was looking around with bright, curious eyes that showed no trace of yesterday's misery. My mother held her, whispering grandmother endearments and smoothing her wispy hair. "You were amazing at the hospital," Melissa said quietly to me. "The way you asked all those detailed questions about the medication and treatment plan. I was too emotional to think clearly." "That is what uncles are for," I replied. "Research and bad jokes." "And midnight watches," she added with a grateful smile. "Ryan told me you did not sleep at all." "I caught a few minutes here and there," I said, "but mostly I wanted to make sure she was okay." My father returned with a resort manager, a tall woman in a crisp blue suit. "Mr. Reynolds has explained your situation," she said warmly. "While we are still fully booked, we do have a 2-bedroom family suite that became available this morning when another guest needed to leave unexpectedly. It would be more than enough space for all of you, with a living area and kitchenette as well." "That sounds perfect," my mother exclaimed. "How much extra would it be?" The manager named a figure that made my parents exchange worried glances. Before they could respond, I stepped forward. "We will take it," I said. "I would be happy to cover the difference as my contribution to our family vacation." "Anthony, no," my father began. "We cannot ask you to do that." "You are not asking, I am offering," I replied. "And technically I still owe for my portion of the vacation anyway." After some discussion, we reached a compromise. I would pay the upgrade fee for the suite while my parents would cover the base cost they had already budgeted for 2 rooms. Ryan insisted on paying for all our meals for the remainder of the trip. The family suite exceeded our expectations. Located on the top floor with a stunning ocean view, it featured 2 spacious bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a full living room with sleeper sofa, and a well-appointed kitchenette. Floor-to-ceiling windows opened onto a private balcony that wrapped around the corner of the building. "This is incredible," Melissa breathed, taking in the panoramic view of white sand beaches and turquoise waters. We quickly settled into our new accommodations. My parents took one bedroom, Melissa and Ryan took the other with Emma's portable crib, and I would use the sleeper sofa in the living room. It was a perfect arrangement that gave everyone space while keeping us together as a family. That evening we ordered room service instead of going out, all of us too tired from the hospital ordeal to venture far. As we ate on the balcony watching the sunset paint the sky in vivid oranges and pinks, my father raised his glass in a toast. "To family," he said simply, "all of us together." The toast opened the door to the conversation we needed to have. Over dessert, we talked openly about the misunderstandings and hurt feelings that had accumulated over the past year. "I never meant to make you feel less important when Emma came along," my mother told me earnestly. "I think I got so caught up in being a grandmother that I forgot to keep being your mother too. And I have been jealous of your relationship with Emma," I admitted to Melissa. "You created this amazing new person who instantly became the center of everyone's world. It made me feel like I had been replaced." "I never saw it that way," Melissa said thoughtfully. "I just assumed you were too busy with your important job to care much about baby stuff." "Are you kidding? I have probably shown Emma's pictures to everyone at my office." I laughed. "My team knows more about my niece's developmental milestones than they do about our project deadlines." This revelation seemed to surprise and please Melissa. "Really? Really," I confirmed. "Just because I live far away does not mean I do not want to be involved in her life." The conversation shifted to my father's business troubles. He explained how the large hardware chain had steadily eroded his customer base and how he had been too proud to adapt his business model or seek help. "I know a few people in small business development," I offered, "and my company has been doing some work with retail analytics that might help you identify new opportunities." "I would appreciate that," my father said, his expression a mix of relief and lingering pride. "I should have told you sooner." "We all need to communicate better," my mother concluded. "No more secrets, no more assumptions." The remainder of our vacation transformed into the family bonding experience we had all hoped for. We established a new routine that balanced group activities with individual preferences. Mornings were spent together on the beach building sandcastles for Emma and taking turns swimming in the crystal clear water. Afternoons allowed for some personal time. My father and Ryan went deep-sea fishing one day. My mother enjoyed the resort spa. Melissa took Emma for gentle walks along the shore when she napped, and I explored the local nature preserve with my camera. Evenings brought us back together for dinner, either in the suite or at one of the resort restaurants. We shared stories, played board games, and took turns caring for Emma, who quickly bounced back to her usual cheerful self once the antibiotics took full effect. On our last evening, we arranged for a professional photographer to take family pictures on the beach at sunset. The resulting images captured our reconciliation perfectly, my parents standing proudly with arms around each other, Melissa and Ryan holding Emma between them and me beside them all. Clearly part of the family unit once more. As we packed our belongings the next morning, preparing for the journey home, Melissa approached me with Emma in her arms. "We have been thinking," she said, glancing at Ryan, who nodded encouragingly. "Would you consider being Emma's godfather?" "Officially, I mean. We have been putting off her christening, but we would really like you to have a formal role in her life." Emotion tightened my throat. "I would be honored," I managed to say. And she continued, "Maybe you could come visit more often. Or we could bring Emma to Boston sometimes. I want her to know her Uncle Anthony, not just through video calls." "I would like that very much," I replied, reaching out to take Emma's tiny hand in mine. "Maybe I could even look at job opportunities closer to Chicago. My company has been talking about opening a Midwest office." "Really?" Melissa's face lit up. "You would consider moving back?" "I am not making any promises," I cautioned. But this week has reminded me what I have been missing by living so far from family. Emma babbled happily and reached for me. As I took her in my arms, I felt the last pieces of tension melt away. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together as a family. 3 months have passed since our eventful Florida vacation, and the changes in our family dynamic have been profound and lasting. What began as a painful exclusion transformed into a catalyst for honest communication and renewed connections. Upon returning home, we each made concrete efforts to maintain the understanding we had reached at the resort. My parents established a new Sunday ritual, separate video calls with Melissa's family and with me, ensuring each of us received focused attention. My father and I scheduled weekly discussions about his business challenges, and together we developed a strategy to differentiate his hardware store from the big box competition by emphasizing personalized service and specialized products for local contractors. The financial situation improved gradually. My suggestion to create a dedicated contractor service desk proved successful, bringing in steady business from professional builders who valued expertise over slightly lower prices. I connected my father with a retail consultant from my professional network who helped modernize inventory management and reduce overhead costs. By the 3rd month, the store showed its first profit increase in over a year. Melissa and I rebuilt our sibling relationship through honest conversations about our perceptions and insecurities. I admitted my jealousy of her stable family life, while she acknowledged her envy of my career freedom. These admissions cleared the air between us in ways we had never experienced before. True to my word, I began exploring professional opportunities that would bring me closer to Chicago. My company was indeed considering a Midwest expansion, and I submitted a formal proposal to lead the initiative. While still in the evaluation phase, the prospect of reducing the geographical distance between us gave our family something hopeful to anticipate. In the meantime, I arranged to work remotely for 1 week each month, splitting my time between my parents' home and Melissa's brasses. These visits allowed me to develop a meaningful relationship with Emma, who now enthusiastically exclaimed Annie whenever I appeared on video calls or in person. Watching her personality emerge brought me joy I had never expected to experience. The christening ceremony took place in late October, a beautiful autumn day, with leaves turning golden around the small church, where both Melissa and I had been baptized as infants. Standing as Emma's godfather, promising to help guide her spiritual and personal growth, I felt a profound sense of belonging and purpose. The entire extended family gathered afterward at my parents' home, where photographs of all 3 generations adorned the walls with equal prominence. During these months, I established healthy boundaries while maintaining connections. I learned to speak up when feeling overlooked, rather than retreating into hurt silence. My parents became more conscientious about balancing their attention and affection. Melissa made efforts to include me in family decisions and celebrations, even from a distance. Our communication patterns evolved significantly. We created a family text thread for daily updates and amusing anecdotes separate from the more in-depth video calls. My mother started sending me personalized messages unrelated to Emma, asking about my work projects or social life. My father and I discovered a shared interest in photography, exchanging tips and critiques of our latest images. Planning for the next family vacation began early, with transparent discussions about budgets, accommodations, and expectations. We decided on a mountain cabin rental in Colorado for the following summer, with costs clearly allocated and everyone's preferences considered. The spreadsheet I created to track expenses and arrangements became a symbol of our new approach, open, equitable, and considerate of each person's circumstances. The most profound change occurred within myself. The painful experience of feeling excluded forced me to examine my own role in our family dynamics. I realized I had often used work as an excuse to maintain emotional distance, fearing rejection or misunderstanding. By standing up for myself at the resort, I had not only changed how my family treated me, but also how I engaged with them. I learned that speaking truth calmly, rather than either suppressing feelings or reacting with anger, could transform relationships. The moment I walked away from the resort had been both an ending and a beginning. The end of accepting marginalization and the beginning of authentic connection based on mutual respect. Family relationships, I came to understand, require active maintenance. They evolve naturally as circumstances change, but navigation of these transitions, demands conscious effort and clear communication. The arrival of Emma had indeed shifted our family's center of gravity, but there was room for all of us to orbit harmoniously if we acknowledged and accommodated these changes together. The most valuable lesson emerged from the hospital crisis when truly needed family transcends disagreements. Despite feeling hurt and excluded, I had returned without hesitation when Emma fell ill. This realization affirmed that beneath the surface tensions ran a deeper current of love and commitment that could withstand challenging tests. Looking toward the future, I feel optimistic about our family's trajectory. We have created new traditions while honoring the spirit of old ones. We have learned to express needs and boundaries respectfully. Most importantly, we have discovered that family bonds can become stronger after being tested like metal forged in fire. Real family, I now understand, is not defined by who shares a room on vacation or who appears in the most photographs. It is built through consistent presence, honest communication, mutual respect, and the willingness to work through difficult emotions together. It is imperfect and sometimes messy, but ultimately irreplaceable. What would you do if your family made you feel excluded? Have you ever had to walk away from people you love to protect your self-respect? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about family dynamics and personal growth. Remember, sometimes the most painful moments become our greatest opportunities for transformation. Thank you for watching, and may your own family journeys lead to deeper understanding and connection.